IWA and the Labour Party from the foundation of Indian Work Association in 1938. Labour movement, trade unions before 1947 up to the achievement of independence of India. These movements, they advocated for the independence of India, and Indian Work Association jointly worked with the Labour Party, not only on that matter but also during the elections. Indian Work Association campaigned for the Labour Party. Particularly in the 1945 election, Indian Work Association, particularly in Coventry, London area, Yorkshire, they actively campaigned for the candidates of the Labour Party in 1945. And in 1945, the Labour government was elected under the leadership of Clement Attlee, and the IWA continued to campaign for the independence of India, along with the left wing of the Labour Party particularly. And one person I like to mention is Fenner Brockway, and he was chair of the Movement for Colonial Freedom, and very good campaigner, and he was a member of parliamentary member of the Labour Party from Slough until his retirement during 60s. Then he became Lord Brockway. After the independence, there was less activities in the Indian Work Association after 47, as more Indians started coming to the UK for economic reasons. Indian Work Association became active during early 50s. So there was sort of a pause for nearly 5 years. And all along, from 52 onwards, IWA continued to support Labour Party for the elections, for the parliament, election for the local government, councillors, county councillors, wherever Indian Work Association branches were active, but also at the same time campaigned through leaflets, media, to vote for the Labour Party members. Labour Party stood by the migrants, and one achievement they did for ex-colonial or colonial people, annexation of the Nationality Act in 1948, under which the Commonwealth immigrants, there was free entry to them. All they needed a passport to enter the UK, stay here, work here, live here, and that was very good achievement from the Labour Party. Labour Party continued to oppose Tory policy to control migrants from the Commonwealth and particularly from the new Commonwealth, apart from Canada, Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. And from South Africa only white South Africans. Labour Party opposed the Commonwealth Immigration Bill in 1961, which became law on 1st July 1962. And during the debates on the immigrant bill, Hugh Gaitskell was the leader of the Labour Party, and he pledged that on return to the power, forming the government, Labour Party will repeal the act. But Labour Party policy changed after the defeat of Gordon Walker in Smethwick, when Peter Griffiths won the election. Not only in Smethwick, he contested by-election in Leytonstone. He lost the seat there. And under Wilson's government, Labour Party reneged on the pledge of repealing the Commonwealth Immigrant. IWA criticized the Labour Party, but still continued to support the Labour Party during the elections, national elections and local elections, vote for the Labour Party. In that matter, when Wilson government was formed, Labour Party approached the Indian Workers' Association to more actively join the labour movement. Tony Benn, he met Comrade Teja at Leamington Spa in 1965, and he had a good discussion with Comrade Teja. And in 1965 as well, David Rennell, he was Home Office Minister, and he not only himself but on behalf of the government held a meeting with the Indian Workers' Association. I was not present in the meeting, but Joshi was, and the meeting was held in Arden Hotel on New Street. Had a good discussion. David Rennell pledged with the Indian Workers' Association to join the National Committee for Commonwealth Immigrants and other bodies. Indian Workers' Association held its discussion and at the National Conference the decision was not to join the government bodies and remain critical. But I want to say that despite the lack on the part of the Labour government from 64 to 70, and then from 74 to 78, and then from 97 to 2010, IWA continued to support the Labour candidates in the constituencies to ask its member to vote for Labour Party. So that is the official history of the Indian Work Association. And during the elections, particularly in the early 80s, IWA organized meeting inviting candidates from the Labour Party, Conservative Party, Liberal Party, where there was a candidate from the Communist Party. I remember one in Nottingham, John Pick, to hold platform discussion, asking questions from the audiences to the Member of Parliament. And that was in 83 elections. And then IWA asked the audience and IWA member that whichever candidate stands for the repeal of the Immigration Act and racist laws, please vote only for them, where Labour Party candidates are not standing out. For that reason, IWA do not recommend you to support for the Labour Party. So this is the background of the IWA to the Labour Party.
When did or how did the Labour Party realise the influence of the IWA in gaining electoral support? Was it the Peter Griffiths incident, given that you had warned the sitting MP that unless he took sort of action, he would lose his seat?
And Labour Party nationally, along with the trade union, particularly Transport General Worker Union, the General Secretary was Frank Cousin. They continued to plead for the support of the Indian Work Association. And after the defeat of Gordon Walker, they still approached the Indian Work Association. And Indian Work Association, rather than supporting the Tories, lesser of the two evils, continue to support the Labour Party. Not only in this country, but for the campaigns on colonial independence in Africa, in Afro-Caribbean islands, and other places, Singapore, Malaysia. And it was a good and it was big influence on the Labour government of the Indian Party during 64-70 and then 74 to 80 election. But when Tony Blair returned as the Prime Minister of India, then they gradually started to approach other Indian organization, not remain dependent on the Indian Work Association.
Just on that point, I recall a lobby of Parliament where Roy Hattersley was on the platform, and I was at, this was in Parliament in one of the lobby halls, and I asked a question from the back, that the Labour Party shouldn't, and particularly Roy Hattersley, given his Small Heath sort of constituency, Sparkbrook, sorry, that they take for granted the support of the minority communities, and that they must realise that they will at a point stop supporting the Labour Party.
At one election, Indian Work Association issued the call to oppose Roy Hattersley and Brian Baldwin. Brian Baldwin was candidate for All Saints constituency and Roy Hattersley was for Sparkbrook. And it was an open campaign from the Indian Work Association not to support those two candidates because there is no difference between Roy Hattersley and Brian Baldwin. IWA published leaflets and pamphlets on that. Yeah.
So there were Labour MPs who had good relationships. One of those was Andrew Foulds in Smethwick.
Andrew Fould, I forgot the name, but his surname was Foley in West Bromwich, Peter Snape in West Bromwich, and there were some candidate in Nottingham, Southall, Labour Party candidate, I forgot the name now. And in some other areas, Derby, Margaret Packet, she was very good member of Parliament on immigration policy, against the immigration policy. And so there was different candidates who took the stand to work with the IWA, but IWA took the stand, those who are pro-immigration policy, IWA stood back.
And what about IWA members who, or IWA office bearers, despite the IWA stance on joining political parties, and still went ahead and did so?
Indian Work Association committee members who were members of the Communist Party during the 60s and 70s, and then they became the member of Association of Indian Communists. Only they didn't join the Labour Party as members. But other IWA committee members, they did join the Labour Party. They became councillors, they became member parliament, and Communist Party members or AIC members didn't join the Labour Party. The others did join the Labour Party and worked with the Labour Party. Yeah.
So who were those prominent people who joined the Labour Party from the IWA in Birmingham, let's say?
In Birmingham, Pug Singh, he joined the Labour Party. Mahinder Thaggad, Tarsem King,
who went on to be Lord King.
Yeah, Baba Tallu, Babu Singh, they were IWA active members. And in Birmingham, Sardul Marba, he was IWA member. Gurdial Atwal, he was IWA member. Chaman Lal, he was IWA member. And there was one, his name was Bagga, and he used to run a news agent shop which was bought by Indrajit. He became the councillor. Another one was Khushi Ram, and they joined the Labour Party, and they became active member within the Labour Party. Jasmeer Singh Rai's daughter, I forgot his name now, she joined the Labour Party, and she was the secretary for the Member Parliament for Handworth, Clayshot. Clayshot is one of the activists in the Labour Party against the immigration bills and against racism.